The next topic is classification of plants. Plants is living organism that can be classified into two groups. The first group is flowering plants. Flowering plants is the plants that produce flowers. The second group is non-flowering plants. Non-flowering plants is the plants that don't produce flowers. These two groups of plants will be detailed in the following section of the lesson. About the plants, we first talk about flowering plants. Flowering plants are plants produce flower and reproduce their species through their seed. Flowering plants can be further classified into two groups based on the number of cotyledons in the seed. The first is monocotyledon. The second is dicotyledon. These two types of plants will be detailed in following section of the lesson. We first talk about the monocotyledon. Monocotyledon consists of one cotyledon. Monocotyledon's roots are fibrous. Most of the monocotyledon is non-woody stem. Leaves are with parallel veins. Petals are growing in multiple of 3. Example of the monocotyledon is sugarcane, orchid plant, banana plant, oil palm tree, and coconut tree. The second type of flowering plants is dicotyledon. The seed of dicotyledon flowering plants consists of two cotyledon. The dicotyledon flowering plants' roots are taproots. Most of the dicotyledon flowering plants are woody stem. Leaves are with network-like veins. Petals of dicotyledon flowering plant are growing in multiple of 4 or 5. For example, durian tree, rambutan tree, rubber tree, and sunflower plant. We continue the lesson with topic, non-flowering plants. Non-flowering plants are the plants that don't produce flower for their reproduction process. Non-flowering plants can be further divided into 3 groups. The first is moss. The second is fern. The third is conifer. These 3 groups of the non-flowering plants will be detailed in the coming section of the lesson. We first talk about the moss. Moss is the non-flowering plants without vascular system. The vascular system of a plant is the tissue and series of tubes and veins that move nutrients collected by the roots to the stem and leaves. Mosses reproduce by producing spores. Mosses don't have real leaves, stems, and roots. For example, Marchantia sp. The second type of non-flower plant in our discussion is the fern. Fern is the non-flowering plants with vascular. The vascular system of a plant is the tissue and series of tubes and veins that move nutrients collected by the roots to the stem and leaves. Ferns reproduce their species by producing spores. Ferns have green leaves, stems, and roots. For example, Aspilenium bulbiferum sp. The third non-flowering plant in this discussion is conifer. Conifer is the non-flowering plants with vascular system. Conifers reproduce their species by bearing cones, their seed. Conifers have green leaves, stem, roots. Pine tree and spruce are the examples of non-flower plants. This is the full explanation of topic, classification of plants. In the final topic, we talk about constructing a dichotomous key. A dichotomous key is the systematical method that used by biologists to identify and classify the organisms based on their common characteristics. Dichotomous key is a series of steps in which each step has 2 options. By choosing an option in the first step, it will lead you to classify each of the species in the given group. Here, dichotomous means a division into 2. Constructing a dichotomous key is a process to build a series of 2 options from a given group of organisms species, at which the characteristic of each species needs to be identified. This is the process about, continue to divide the species into two groups, until each of the species is identified. There are 3 steps to constructing a dichotomous key. The first step is, determine common characteristic that can be found out from the group. For example, the given group at the right-hand side consists of 5 items. Now, we got to determine common characteristic that can be found out from the group. We all know that matter in the world can be classified into non-living thing and living thing. The first common characteristic from the group is, they are living thing. And living thing can be further classified into plants and animals. And all the items in the group are animals. The animals can be further classified into vertebrate and invertebrate. We start the classification from this division. The animals in the group cannot be all classified into either vertebrate or invertebrate. It means that our first dichotomous can be start from this 2 option. It is a vertebrate, or it is not a vertebrate. Now, we move on to the second step. Continuously find out a characteristic that can divide the group into 2. We first focus on the vertebrate, and create the second dichotomous key. From this, we divide them into another 2 group, has feather or doesn't have feather. This is very direct. Those has feather is bird. And those doesn't have feather got 2 species of animal. And now we move on to the step 3, it is to repeat the step, B, until each of the species is identified. And now, we can ignore the bird, because it have been identified. And focus on the characteristic that can frog and cow. We may use the swimming capability of this group to classify them. From the group, frog, it can swim and the first option is linked to frog. And the second option, it cannot swim, linked to the cow. So far, all the animal from vertebrate group have been allocated to 3 dichotomous key. Now, to go back the first dichotomous key, the second option. Let's focus on the invertebrate. We need to create another dichotomous key that can divide the group into 2. So, we link this option to the 4th dichotomous key. We know that the ant has 3 pairs of leg, whereas the spider has 4 pairs of leg. So, the 4th dichotomous key can use the number of leg to divide the group. The first option is, has 3 pairs of legs, and link it to ant. The second option is more than 3 pairs of legs and link it to spider. This is the complete steps to come out the dichotomous key from the given group. The explanation of topic 3, construction a dichotomous key is completed. And we have just done the study of Form 2 Science, the Chapter 1, Biodiversity. Thank you for watching.